Of course there have been, but obviously we're providing one daily update. It seems apparent to us that we'll have around the same number, if not more, cases tomorrow, and that's why we've taken the action we've had. In terms of the health website, can I please ask everybody to keep monitoring it, especially those of you who live on the Northern Beaches, as I'm certain new venues will come up as we contact the people who are testing positive. We will make sure all the venues they've frequented are up on the website. In fact, everybody in Greater Sydney and New South Wales should be looking at the website, because even though you might live on the Northern Beaches, you may have gone to venues obviously across the state, whether it's in the regions or in Greater Sydney. So we are asking every citizen to make sure you're monitoring the health website to see which venues pop up during the day, which will suggest that you may need to go and get tested and stay isolated.
So what is the size of the Northern Beaches cluster now?
Well, if you add up, I'll ask Dr. Kerr to give an update, but obviously given add on the number 23 to the previous number we'd had. But Dr. Chand, if you want to give us the final number as at 8 p.m. last night.
Look, I'll have to get back to you about the 8 p.m. last night. As you imagine, we're taking a keen interest in every single case. I think the key message for the community is certainly there are cases come in, as you expect, but the vast majority of the cases were linked to those exposures at those two sites. We have got announced in the release around an exposure at a gym, the Always Fitness, Anytime Fitness at AVALON. And can I acknowledge the great cooperation of that gym owner in providing data last night for us, and we've got those messages out through our usual messages out, and we will be contacting residents, people that went to that gym. So the key issue is that the majority of all of the cases that we were advised that we've got details on have been linked, except a small handful that still reside in the local area and have links, either residents of AVALON, been to the gym, or have some link to other people that are linked to the cluster.
So those two that are under investigation, they're still in the Northern Beaches?
Yes, so obviously there will be cases coming in every time, and I think this is really important that people understand that this is a moving feast and we need to reassess continually. But obviously what we are looking at closely is how many are linked to the sites and how many represent are not linked, because that gives us an idea of the broader community spread. To date, when I was briefed just before this, in terms of all of the cases we've got details on, there are basically 3 cases that were not specifically linked to the AVALON BOLO or the AVALON RSL. 2 of those were residents of AVALON. One clearly we have released around the gym, and we're exploring that person was infectious whilst at the gym. And then there was another person who we're contact tracing some events to find out her exposure source, but both live in AVALON, and it may turn out that there are subsequent links to people that have been at the RSL. As you can imagine, we're dealing with large numbers and we need to cross-reference it. But can I thank the people that we're ringing, that giving us the time of, going through methodically your records and giving us that detailed information. And thanks to the businesses who have put the safety of their customers as a high priority and have those digital records that can provide rapidly to our contact tracing team. Thank you.
With that case at Anytime Fitness, do you know whether that was a member of the gym or a staff member there?
The person attended the gym. As I said, that person, we have identified as our usual process, we identify when that person was infectious at the gym, but we also are, for all of our cases, looking at potential exposure sources. So that's why our advice often has 2 elements. One, advice for those people that have been what we call close contacts of the case, but we also ask often people that may have been in there prior to the person acquiring their infection to get tested, because we're also looking for those people that might have inadvertently transmitted the infection as a source investigation. So genomic testing, and again, can I thank the laboratory staff who have been working throughout the night. We have had some additional sequences which all confirm the data that it's the same cluster. So it's as expected, but it's always reassuring to get that information that shows your thinking is correct, that we have this one strain involved in the cluster. So there were a number of other genome sequences from cases associated with the cluster sequenced, and they confirmed to be linked to the original two.
Premier, when you consider further restrictions for Greater Sydney, what will be the triggers and what are the restrictions that are on the table?
Well, look, obviously the health experts are concerned about potential seeding that may have occurred. So we know there were people from outside the Northern Beaches who attended both the AVALON RSL and the Bolo Club on the Sunday. So we're just making sure that we've considered that there hasn't been any spread of the disease in Greater Sydney, and that is evolving. So that will depend on the cases and the advice that we get during the day. If anything, of course, the response in Greater Sydney will not be anywhere near the tough position we've taken in relation to Northern Beaches, so I want to make that clear. But I do want to say to Greater Sydney, please, please do not go out tonight or the next few days unless you really have to. Please don't leave your home unless you have to. Obviously do the basics you need to do. Move around as you would. Do not go to the Northern Beaches if you live outside the Northern Beaches unless you absolutely must. And limit your activities. So we're just asking people to be sensible and to use their common sense to make sure that if there is any seeding outside of the Northern Beaches, that we identify it and get that under control. Because we do know, as Dr. Chandler said the last couple of days, that there were people who didn't live in the Northern Beaches who attended some of those events, and obviously you might be the close contact of someone who was at either of those events, which then means you could be susceptible. And we also know from the list of venues, there are a number of venues where people with the virus attended which are outside the Northern Beaches as well. So you might live on the Northern Beaches but have gone to appointments or gone shopping or gone to a hospitality venue outside the Northern Beaches, and those venues are listed as well. So because there is a level of concern about whether seeding has occurred outside the Northern Beaches, we're watching the situation. And if we need to, we may very well revert back to what we had previous to the last couple of weeks, where restrictions were eased, say from 4 square metres to 2 square metres. So they're the kind of things we will be considering and looking at and consulting with the relevant people today, but it will be based very much on health advice. In New South Wales, we always pride ourselves with giving people advance warning of our thinking. I'm not suggesting we'll take that decision tomorrow, but we'll certainly need to consider it during the day. But at this stage, we do need to maintain a very tough position in relation to the Northern Beaches, given the numbers we're seeing come through. So that's why from 5 p.m. tonight until midnight on Wednesday, essentially, people will be asked to stay at home and not leave their home unless it's for an essential reason. And obviously, people remember what we went through in March. It's very similar to that. So essentially, you can go out for those essential things we talked about, but apart from those reasons, you really shouldn't be leaving your home.
So does that include cafes and restaurants being allowed to do takeaway food?
That's right. Of course, you can still do takeaway, but and people are used to that, and the cafes and restaurants are used to that as well, and some have adapted. And recently, you know, all of us know that when you go to venues now, they have all those options available, which previously they didn't. And again, I want to proactively thank the hotel industry, leaders in our religions and places of worship who proactively have asked their members and asked their organisations and businesses to actually revert to either closing down or reverting to a virtual position over the next few days.